You can still be thrifty on holidays, and Easter is no exception. Welcome to Meals with Maria. A budget-friendly Easter dinner was inspired by a list of recipes sent out by Betty Crocker. BettyCrocker.com is a plethora of knowledge when it comes to super easy and inexpensive recipes. It's one of my favorite places to get things from and find inspiration and ideas. In particular, they offered a few different meat options, some appetizers, sides, and desserts. I figured, why don't I take a look at what I have around my house and then take a look at these recipes and then see what I can kind of match up. And the key to really saving money on a holiday is often using what you have on hand and then filling in the cracks with what you can find at the grocery store. Once I got a list together of what I needed, I found that I only needed a few items, including our major piece, which is our ham. I looked around at local sales and I found that my local store, Hannaford, was gonna be my best option for getting the cheapest items possible for this meal. So using what I already had around the house and purchasing what I needed, I was able to spend a total of $31.59 just at my local grocery store. And I was comfortable enough with the amount of food that I purchased that I could have fed probably up to 15 adults, maybe even more. It reminds me of a time in my 20s when I wanted to host Easter. So I invited everybody over, but for some reason that week the budget was really tight. I had about $30 to spend. I somehow managed to get ham, sides, dessert, and alcohol. I'm not sure how I did it, within that $30 budget. And everyone said it was the most comfortable, best Easter that they had ever had to date. And they never, to this day, until they watch this video, will know that I spent only $30 on that Easter dinner. I would be willing to bet, based on what you already have at home, that you could also spend about $30 on Easter dinner using the recipes that I'm going to show you today, and even less, because when I purchased my ham, it was not on sale for the low prices that you're going to see in the upcoming weeks. I had to pay a total of $16.12 for my ham, and I think you're probably going to be able to get yours for around less than $10. They go on sale for somewhere between 50 and 99 cents a pound usually this time of year, because they know that's the item that everyone's going to want to get, and it's all about numbers. For an appetizer, I chose Betty Crocker's deviled eggs. I know they're more expensive these days, but they're still a pretty good budget item. I chose them because I was gonna need eggs anyway for my dessert, so I figured, why don't we do a double dip here? We'll save some of the eggs for my dessert, and then we'll use the rest of them as an appetizer. So those were $2.99. For sides, I chose some roasted carrots and some make-ahead mashed potatoes. And for those, I was able to get my potatoes on sale for $1.50. And I was kind of laughing about that because people have been putting up like, why don't we be dyeing potatoes instead of Easter eggs this year? And at the $1.50 price, we probably should use the potatoes to dye, but I don't really know how good they would taste. I was able to purchase 2 pounds of carrots for $1.99, and sometimes you can even get them for less than that. And everything else I needed for the carrots I had at home: oil, spices, things like that. Same thing went for the mashed potatoes. I had butter, milk, and salt, pretty much. For dessert, I chose a strawberry shortcake, and then I also did rolls. So I made homemade rolls with all things that I had on hand. I had yeast, I had flour. I always have flour, sugar, that kind of thing in my house already. So that's a great thing to just kind of buy and bulk up on when it goes on sale, and that way for holidays and things like that, you're gonna be all set. You already have what you need. The dessert was actually one of the more expensive items because I purchased heavy whipping cream at $5. I actually used the whole container just in the strawberry shortcake, so it is definitely delicious, but a heavy dessert. It's light tasting, but it has a lot of cream in it. And then the strawberries were $3.99, so not on sale this week, but kind of worth it because it's a beautiful thing on the table and you have to have a beautiful dessert for Easter. So I'm super excited to show you my process, hopefully give you some inspiration to save money on your own Easter dinner. Enjoy. All right, we're getting started early because this is an 8-hour crock pot meal. So I got my pajamas on. I'm gonna open up our pork butt. Okay, for this recipe, we're going to trim any excess fat on our pork butt. Then I'm going to make cuts in the ham about a 1/2 inch apart and a 1/4 inch deep in a diamond shaped pattern. And we're going to place the ham into the slow cooker. And then I'm going to make a sauce. In a bowl, I'm mixing together 3/4 of a cup light brown sugar, 3/4 a cup of honey, a 1/2 cup of Dijon mustard, and a 1/4 cup of apple juice. And with the apple juice, I actually saved this kid's apple juice because, again, I didn't want to go out and buy anything extra special or that I didn't need to. And I saw the little package of apple juice we probably got at like McDonald's. And I thought, you know what, we'll just use this for the ham. And I set it aside. But Betty Crocker says, try this out.
Is she still around?
Betty? I don't know. God rest her soul. So this is funny because there's a story about a woman who made a ham and she followed Mom's recipe and it says cut the top off the ham. But she couldn't figure out why it said cut the top off the ham, so every time she'd cut the top off the ham. And she did that for years until she asked Mom, why do I cut the top off the ham? And she said, oh, well, honey, it's because it didn't fit in the oven. So her oven was big enough and she could have kept the top on the ham, but hey, we do things the same way. But it didn't fit, so it was kind of making me laugh. I'm like, should I cut it? But I moved it. It's time to cook the eggs for the deviled eggs, and I need 3 eggs set aside for the cake. We're gonna do a strawberry shortcake, and 2 eggs for the strawberry shortcake and 1 egg for our rolls. So that means that 9 of them are gonna be delicious deviled eggs. I always just use the steamer to make these. I put them on for 14 minutes. Those are up. And I find that is the best way for me to make the eggs. I feel like the shells come off. We'll see once I go to actually peel them. So when the eggs are done, you gotta ice bath them or else they're gonna turn green on the inside. I still kind of left them in the steamer a little long, so I'm hoping that they are not overcooked. So we need to get started on our rolls because they're gonna take a little bit of time here. We need 2 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, and I'm gonna raise this up right now and just start mixing it on a stir. So baking, they say you need to stick to an exact recipe. So I'm hoping this turns out because it's what I have. It was said a 1/4 cup of shortening, but I have a 1/4 cup of butter. So I'm hoping that it all is okay. Then we have a teaspoon of salt, 1 packet of active dry yeast. It specifically says active dry or regular, but not instant. 1/2 cup of very warm milk, and I actually just microwaved this for about a minute. It's not a day in the kitchen without a spill. 1/2 cup of very warm water, and 1 egg. And we're gonna beat this for 1 minute. And the goal here is to make the dough, it says easy enough to handle, whatever that means. Baking is always very cryptic, but it says add in, there's an extra 1/2 cup of flour in the recipe, and kind of add that in until you make it easy enough to handle. So I think mine's gonna take quite a bit more. It feels pretty wet to me. And as you go, you wanna scrape down the sides to make sure everything's mixing together pretty well. So the recipe doesn't exactly say it's gonna be sticky, but I have a feeling that because this is kind of scraping off the sides of this pretty easily, once we knead it, that it will be a lot less sticky. So what I'm gonna do is, again, we're messing with this recipe, so we could end up with no rolls. We're taking a leap of faith. I'm gonna put my dough hook on and knead it with the dough hook instead of my hands for 5 minutes. Okay, good thing I actually looked into like the recommended time from KitchenAid. It says that 2 minutes using your dough hook is equivalent to 10 minutes hand kneading. So I did it for 1, and I even did it higher than maybe I should have. So I'm hoping that that's acceptable. We're gonna kind of scrape the sides off here, and then we're gonna put this dough into a new bowl that is greased, and then flip it over and have the grease side up, and we're gonna let it sit for an hour. Well, that's rising. I'm gonna get started on our strawberry shortcake because we can make this kind of well ahead of time. You need 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of sugar, 5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So it's at this moment that I'm proud of myself for finally having a pastry cutter. It's gonna be so helpful when I am making these. Just mixing everything around, but I might as well use the pastry cutter while I'm at it. I need a full cup of butter. So I could see how you may not have butter on hand like this, but I just happened to get some last week, so it's perfect for me to not have to go out and get any. There are a lot of other budget-friendly options, even just like regular cake mix. And I mentioned this in one of my $20 date night dinner, that you can actually very easily do a cake using soda. And so it's just cake mix and soda, and it will make you a really good cake, like a Dr. Pepper cake or something like that. So those are definitely really budget-friendly options. But I do feel like, kind of like, you know, if you're regularly shopping household, you might have butter on hand from the last time that it was on sale or something like that. And in that case, it's perfect to use what you have. So you want really cold butter to make something like this, and you want to cube it up. So we just need to cut this in until it's crumbly, like it has all these little crumbles. I have to say, I am shocked by how fast this is coming together. It's been my experience that something like this is difficult to do, but apparently if you have the right tools, it's not that hard. And I grabbed one of these on Amazon. It was not expensive, and I don't know why I put it off for so long. I'm gonna crack in 2 eggs and 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. And the recipe says you just wanna mix this until it's lightly beaten, or just blended, I guess. It's hard to tell in this heavy whipping cream. I mean, I don't see any egg yolks, so I think we're good. We could be surprised though. You never know. It's like opaque. So we're just gonna pour this in here, and a soft dough should form. Okay, I don't wanna overwork this because it seems like it's amazing with all the little pieces of butter that's in here. So we're just gonna get it laid out, and it actually says an ungreased sheet, which I'm a little surprised about, but we are gonna follow Betty's instructions today. It says a 15 by 10 like cookie sheet, but I don't have a 15 by 10, I don't think. Mine are bigger than that. And so because of that, I'm gonna use a 13 by 9 pan. And I feel like it's gonna be a little closer. The dough is gonna be a little thicker, but I really want it to like look pretty because it's like the beautiful Easter shortcake. So we are just gonna try our best to kind of smooth it out here. If we need to cook it a little longer because it's a little thicker, that's okay. But I almost want it to look like a cake, even though it's gonna be, you know, it was gonna be in a sheet pan. I just don't have that size sheet pan. I used to, but I lost them. I don't know where they went. So we're gonna bake this at 400 degrees for 16 to 20 minutes. We're take it out and let it cool completely, which is perfect, but we're doing this right now. It's gonna take at least an hour to cool. So we're gonna get the mashed potatoes ready, and which the nice thing about these is they can be made up ahead up to 24 hours, which is awesome. I'm actually gonna do like half the recipe just because it's only the 5 of us and the recipe serves 8. Which is great if there is 8 of you, but we just really won't eat that much mashed potatoes. Julian doesn't like them. Dan's trying to watch his carbs, so I think that they're gonna be delicious with this meal, and I'm excited for them, but you gotta do what works for you and your family. But I'm gonna have tons of extra potatoes as part of my 30 bucks that I spent, so can almost even shave some cash off of that if we want to and use those later for a different meal. The recipe gives you the option to peel them or not peel them, and I have decided to peel them. If I had like red potatoes, I might leave the skins on, but that's not really the type of recipe that we're using. Yellow is actually, like Yukon Gold is actually pretty good as well, if you could leave those skins on. These are just white potatoes, and this skin doesn't look very good to me. And I'll give these a good rinse after. All right, and we got those potatoes started. This pretty much finished up here. Nice and fluffy. So excited to have that. So originally this calls for a lot of strawberries, and strawberries were not cheap this week. And I thought, I think we're gonna do just fine with 1 package. It's just not quite strawberry season yet. But it's still a bright and, you know, fresh dish for the holiday, I think. So the secret to fruit when it's not quite in season, or at least not quite in season yet, is sugar. So it says a 1/4 cup. That seems like a lot, but you know what? We're gonna go in on it because it's a dessert and it's gonna be good. So we're just gonna mix this around and let these sit. I believe it's called macerate when they have macerated, which means you add sugar to it. So nothing wrong with that. So my camera died, I don't know at what point. So nice thing is that the sun has gone down, so it's not coming in awkwardly anymore, but we've got 12 in each one of these pans, all sprayed down, and we're gonna let them rise for about a half hour. We'll put some butter on them as well. All right, now we have butter on them, and we're gonna let them sit for 30 minutes. Saved you the trouble of watching me peel the eggs, but they actually peeled off perfect. That's why I love steaming them so much. We're gonna put about 4.5 tablespoons, but it's really, you know, whatever you feel with the mayonnaise in here, because we're making about 1.5 times the recipe. We have 9 eggs. That looks right to me for now. Then we're just gonna slice our eggs in half. Take the middles of them, wherever they are. There we go. Put them right in the bowl. Actually, we're gonna use close to a teaspoon of like mustard powder, and then close to a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and black pepper. Mix it all up, and it's gonna make a delicious filling for our eggs. We're gonna do our best to make them look pretty. All right, if I could find my little like pretty squirter thing, I would totally do that, and I probably would work a little harder on it if I had company coming over, but instead we're gonna do this other fancy way where we use a spoon and then we use our finger, and we'll just wash our finger off after and put them in here because they taste the same. And you can also always use like a bag, but it's getting close to dinner time. And in the essence of time, I want to get these done because I still need to set the table. And so there's always things that take a back burner on a day when you're trying to serve a large holiday meal. It doesn't always go perfectly as planned, but I'll tell you this, your guests are unlikely to know what you originally had planned. And so as long as you don't say anything, you don't have to tell them that you could have had really pretty eggs. They're gonna think that your eggs are delicious no matter what, because this recipe is really quite good.
Now paprika.
What?
Paprika.
Oh, Julian loves deviled eggs, and one thing about eggs,
Paprika doesn't make
or deviled eggs, that he loves is that you get to put the paprika on top, and he basically doesn't think they're any good unless they have paprika on top.
It tastes gross when they don't have any paprika.
Really?
Uh-huh. Let's just not
He actually enjoys paprika so much that he knows exactly which spice it is, and he's known that for a long time, even before he's starting to learn to read, but even before he could read, he knew which one was paprika.
Paprika!
Because was it by the look of the word, Bud, or was it by the color of the thing?
The word.
Oh.
I just see the P and the A at the end.
Oh, that's how you know?
Uh-huh.
That's how you know it's good.
See? Paprika. Paprika, what did that say? Paprika.
I don't want to move the camera, but I did just put the rolls in the oven. And if you counted, you may see less than 18 deviled eggs here, because we had 9. You cut them in half, you should have 18.
And look at the paprika.
Yes. So I put the others off to the side. We're gonna save those for snacks, just because we have so many, we don't need them. Oh, sweetie, you can just take one from over here. We are gonna make the carrots now. We need 4 tablespoons of oil, 1 tablespoon of dried thyme. Okay, that seems like a lot, but it's all right. I'm gonna 1/4 teaspoon of garlic salt, but I'm just gonna do salt and garlic powder because I don't have garlic salt. And about 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. Here's our garlic powder. We give this a good stir. That is definitely gonna be flavorful. And then just pour in our carrots. I really don't need to make 2 pounds of carrots. Although, I don't know, they might be a good snack, a healthy snack. So I'm not gonna make the whole container, but you obviously can if you're having a big crowd. Gonna give that a good mix, and then we're gonna pour it right over our sheet pan and bake these in the oven at 425 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes. So I drained the potatoes, they're all cooked, and we're gonna go a little bit off script just due to timing and what I have on hand. We're doing a little less than 1/4 of a tablespoon of butter, putting some salt in here. We're gonna do about maybe a 1/2 cup of milk. Benny's playing with trucks. Pepper, and I'm gonna hand mash these The original recipe says that you want to like cook up the butter and the milk together and then pour it into the mashed potatoes and then bake it for like an hour. But we don't got time for that. So if I made them ahead, that's great. Otherwise, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be fresh, be delicious to me. You can't go wrong with potatoes with butter and milk. And if you ever feel like your potatoes are not good enough, that is because you don't have enough salt in them. But it's likely you didn't put enough salt. So potatoes absorb a lot of salt. Go ahead, be generous. So I did mash these up and I figured we got a few minutes left, so I'm just putting them into a casserole dish and we're just gonna pop them in the oven to see if we can get like a little brown over the top. Just kind of make them more like Betty anticipated. As everything finishes up in the oven, we're just gonna get our whipped cream ready for the top of our strawberry shortcake. I've got 2 cups, which is the rest of the container of heavy whipping cream. 1/3 a cup of powdered sugar, and about a teaspoon of vanilla. Measure with your heart. Start off on the stir so it can go everywhere, and then we'll whip it up. You have to be so careful with whipped cream because sometimes if you let it go too long, it's gonna be too much. I would think I was right there. I mean, I think this is about as far as you want it to go before it turns to butter. So I think we're gonna be good. I'm just gonna put this whipped cream right over the top of this. Hopefully it's cool enough now. We can get it on the table. We've got to slice up our ham, take out our carrots, and get everything all set. We are really close right now. The kids got out the Easter stuff, so they're playing with a little bunny in the background here, and I'm just gonna get this covered in the strawberries. I don't know that I want to put like all the juices on. Maybe I do. I don't know. We'll decide as we go. All right. It looks edible to me. It looks delicious. I'm ready. Benny, you like it? Are you popping too? So this was done a little while ago. I'm gonna take it out, carve it up, and we're ready to eat. I had never done a ham in the crock pot like this before, and I will do it forever now. I will never cook it in the crock pot. This was so delicious. It's definitely the best ham that I've ever had. It was basically falling apart, falling off the bone, and the flavor of that sauce was absolutely incredible. I mean, I'm carving it, but you could basically shred it like pulled pork, which is somewhat comical because earlier in the day, Dan was like, we're having pulled pork, and I was like, no, it's just ham. Well, it turned out to be almost like pulled ham, but I was not mad because it just was so moist, juicy, not dry. It's a winner, and I loved it because, like I said, I had everything on hand to kind of make that glaze. And I know that hams are going to get cheaper as we get closer to Easter, so that's something to look forward to too. That main dish, that piece de resistance, the ham and the carrots, is kind of the last thing to get out to the table. And today I just set the table not too intensely. I just took out a little box of our Easter stuff, had Dan go to the attic and get that for us, and just set out a few things to just make it feel festive. So even if you don't have a ton of stuff, you can still have a beautiful and festive Easter dinner. And you can use what you have on hand to make something that is very filling and very delicious. As you can see, Ben in particular really enjoyed that strawberry shortcake. It was probably the best strawberry shortcake I've ever had, and I'm likely to make it for Easter this year, just because it was so good. I can't wait to share it with everybody. And I made 18 deviled eggs, and I'm a little embarrassed to tell you that they are completely gone from that one night. I guess that's only maybe like 3.5 per person, but Ben ate 2. I think Julian ate like 5. He really loves the deviled eggs. The rolls turned out really well, and like I said, the strawberry shortcake was out of this world. It was just for my family, so it's okay to go in for those like little bites, right? Comment below if you also do that. It doesn't count if you eat it like that, right?
And Julian had a big slice. We don't really go fancy for the dessert, usually like a paper plate like that, even on a special occasion. Maybe it would be an Easter paper plate, but this is what we had, so this is what we used. I hope you feel inspired to use what you have on hand and have an amazing but inexpensive Easter dinner. If you're looking for more inspiration, go ahead and click on this next video. I did an Easter dinner at Walmart last year, so there's more options there. And remember, the next time you're on YouTube, make sure you're watching Meals with Maria.
Oh, almost across the table.